Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob? I mean, some of you might be like,
continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tammy Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do. So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome to the Tammy Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast. I am so excited for today's episode. I already recorded it earlier today and I cannot wait to get to it. But first, I have to give a massive shout out to Erica from My Fit Tribe, who has sponsored this podcast because she is starting her own podcast, the My Fit Tribe podcast, coming in November. So shout out to you and thank you so much for believing and investing in my dream. And so it feels so good to be able to send all of that love and support right back to you and encourage all of the Tammy Talks listeners to check out your podcast as well. And for those of you that don't know, My Fit Tribe, they focus on a nurturing connection between mind, body, and spirit. So of course we align, obviously. Their coaching is rooted in the belief that true transformation occurs when all aspects of our being are aligned. They employ a blend of evidence-based techniques, personalized strategies to inspire you and support you throughout your journey. And they have coaching options available now. So go check them out at myfittribe.org. And you can also follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Okay, this episode is so great. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you, My Fit Tribe, and hop over to our guest. Welcome to the Tammy Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast. I have a lovely guest here with me today, Amanda, who I met in the sauna of all places, which is where I meet most people, honestly. It's a great place to meet people. It is, and people joke like, why do you spend so much time at the gym? Like, it's literally my social hour. It's kind of, most people do happy hour. I just do, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Hey. I mean, I think, we'll get into this a little bit, but I think it's a better way to go, right?
Right. Yes. So we met in the sauna and just, everyone kind of talking in there, finding out a little bit more about you. And I was like, oh, interesting. I think you might need to be on the podcast. And so then we scheduled a coffee date and it turns out we had a lot more in common than we realized. And it was not just about health and wellness. It was so much more than that. So another very interesting way that the universe connects you with the people.
You together. Yep.
Yeah.
I've always said that Madison is the smallest big town.
Yeah.
And that was for sure one of those.
It was definitely one of those moments.
Yes.
Yeah. I just started opening up and you're like, holy, wait, what? Wait. And then I think it was probably an hour into the conversation and we actually started talking about what we came to talk there about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're like, we should probably just put microphones in front of our face next time and have this conversation.
Yes.
So, but anyway, I wanted to bring her on because if you've watched any of the episodes, I'm very passionate about exercise and I talk a lot about mental health, and it's so much of what you do for kids and what you offer for kids is the space to be able to do that through Try for Schools. And so we have lots that we want to talk about. And once again, this episode is very unscripted and she's like, I'm an open book. I'm like, perfect. That's how I like them. But share a little bit with us about what Try for Schools is and we can just kind of roll with it from there.
Sure. Yeah. So Try for Schools, we're nonprofit, Dane County. Our whole mission is just get accessible opportunities for kids to be active.
Yeah.
Right. So we know how important movement is for physical health, for mental health, for emotional regulation.
Yes.
And so really the organization throughout the years, we're 14 years old now. Over the years, it's kind of evolved from this, we just do kids youth triathlons and all the money goes back to the schools, to now it's become much, much more. And now we're working into after school programs. And those after school programs have more of that holistic kind of, vibe to them. We're teaching the kids about team building and confidence, integrity. How can I use movement to help me both in school and out of school?
Yeah.
And then ultimately the same concept applies where we turn it all around. All the money we bring in goes right back to the physical education departments here in Dane County.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the big reason behind that, and kind of like one of the initial founding reasons, was that Dane County physical education budgets, less than $100.
What?
Less than $100 on average. So, and that's a department. That's not per teacher. That's a department. So, if
my gosh,
roll over to Stevens,
yeah,
you figure there's, I think on average right now, MMSD is 17 kids per class.
Yeah.
$100.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. So,
we're blowing up this podcast. We're getting some funding.
Yes. I would love that. But if you think about that, like,
that's
I don't
crazy.
know, 3 basketballs, maybe.
Right.
Maybe you could add a jump rope in there. There's not a lot you could buy with $100 though these days. So you figure that's every year.
Wow.
And so from day one, the mission of the org, or like, I guess our rule, is that 100% of the entry fee is going to be put back into the physical education department. And so we have a direct contact at every school, and we tally up the number of kids that participated from our programs, multiply that by the entry fee.
Yeah.
And then we cut a check direct to that school attention name of physical education teacher.
Wow.
And the reason is, and the reasoning behind that is like, if we like just send it to a district,
right,
it's likely like all the other funding to get kind of like lost in this bucket.
Yeah.
Whereas if we send a check for, and if you figure you have $100 and we're able to double it, in many cases, we're able to get these teachers $1,000.
Wow.
Right.
That's a game changer.
It is. And so I started with Try for Schools, took over the director position in late 2021.
Great timing.
Yes. Yes.
Great time, by the way. We all know what happened in 2021. Just start a whole new career. And I guess if there was ever a time to just say,
just forget it. Like, throw it out of the wind, start over.
That's probably a perfect time to do it.
But in the fall is always when we call them just the distribution. So we cut the checks.
Yeah.
And I remember getting to September-ish, and suddenly I got a couple of emails from teachers. They're just like, hey, just wondering, did we make any money from Try for Schools this year? And I was like, the realization of like, oh my gosh, like they're planning their school year.
Yeah.
And they're counting on the money that they might make from us. So it was like this, like, oh my God, we're doing something so good, but also like, wow.
They're dependent on us
on a nonprofit that doesn't need to necessarily exist.
Right.
So it was definitely one of those like really impactful moments of like, we have an opportunity to not just do great things for kids, but to also do great things for our teachers, which in turn does great things for all the kids that are part of those classes, even if they're not participating in our events.
Ooh.
Yes. So kind of a roundabout. This is typically how Try for Schools goes. I always joke that I need a really large building to do an elevator pitch because we just have so much that we're doing. But it's all amazing. And so whatever I talk about, kind of just flows into the next thing.
That's so amazing and so important, because you're right. It's not even just impacting the kids that are in that program, but to completely impact hundreds of students.
Yeah.
Now having more opportunity, more equipment. Wow.
Yeah. And I was definitely, growing up as a kid, I was the, always living life at 11. And so it was, gym class was my favorite.
Yep.
Physical education was my favorite. I mean, if we didn't have those like little scooters
scooters, except when you like got your fingers caught, you rolled over all your fingertips.
Oh yeah. Totally worth it though.
Surprised I have any left, honestly.
Oh my gosh. I remember down to like the red one that was kind of plastic, but not 100%. That was the fastest one. That was the one that was the best. But it's, it's like those moments that you look back and like, I could remember like how hard I was working.
Yeah.
But it was because the scooters were fun. and we wanted to go fast and we wanted to play tag or whatever game we were playing. Right. But that was one of those moments, in physical education class particular, that was like, oh, working hard is fun.
Yeah.
Like this isn't a punishment. Like we love this.
Yeah.
And even the kid that you knew that like, okay, this kid isn't going to go out and run 800 meters or the mile. They're not going to like that, but they're in gym class rolling around on those scooters.
Heck yeah.
And so that's part of what we're trying to instill too, is the idea that like movement is fun.
Yeah.
Right. Like movement is not a punishment. And it's something that you can have in your life and have it be good and have it be fun and not think of it as this like, oh, I have to go do this.
Right.
So,
well, and how important to instill that message at that age, because looking back at my story, exercise was a form of punishment for me because of my own food stuff and body image and all of these things. So I took what was a fun and healthy outlet and turned it into something that wasn't.
Right.
And luckily have found my way back to that. But if I would have known that exercise was so much more than just a way to punish myself or lose weight or burn calories, and like, oh no, I need this outlet to help like emotionally regulate, move my emotions, clear my energy, like, and just help kids feel grounded and connected to themselves and to their body. Like
it's
something they can carry and have a
important.
tool for their entire lives if they understand that importance now.
Yes. And that's the thing, right? It's one of those things that like you get into your 30s, 40s, 50s and go, I, underestimated the impact of that.
Yep.
As kids, as kids, like, right, their brains are just not developed to understand that, right? They can't think, they can't see like, oh, motoring around on a scooter is going to help me when I'm in my 30s. Like, if I had a scooter, so much stress would be relieved. Right now, I'm just envisioning all of us, our sauna crew, in
scooter race.
The basketball gym, wood floors.
Oh my gosh.
Scooter races. Done.
We need to make that happen.
I think we're getting kicked out of Princeton Club.
Oh my gosh. I would absolutely be there for that. I would love that.
Oh.
Well, and it's right before you said that, I was thinking about how the gym is really like an adult playground. Like it is for me. Like that's where I kind of, and I might do silly and stupid stuff there, but it's that outlet, that movement. And if we can kind of think of it in that same way about what it was like to be on the playground and bring that same kind of fun and energy into your workouts, like you did as a kid, like, no, you're right. This doesn't have to be this awful, dreadful thing. If you can bring in that same energy that you did with a kid, which is all about like connecting with your inner child.
Yes. It all links back.
It links back. It always does. I'll always find a way.
Like you should have a whole podcast on this.
I know, right? Done.
Check.
How can I talk about inner child work all day, every day? Start a podcast.
Well, but again, though, it's one of those things that, we were talking before about how I said that, nothing on the podcast is off limits.
Yeah.
Because for me personally, everything links back to that, like the way I developed this love for physical activity, whether it has been good moments or hard moments, that has always been there.
Yep.
And it's like you kind of said the play, right? Looking at the playground, right? When you look back to physical education or recess, I guess, right? I envision now, like if I go past a playground, kids screaming and yelling and chasing each other and laughing and having fun, right? And what is that? It's a community.
Yeah.
Those kids are playing together. They're learning how to interact together. They're enjoying that time and they're learning about each other and they're learning about themselves. We now as adults get to do the same thing in the gym, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, like we don't go to happy hours, we go to the gym.
Right.
And like that totally works for me, right? Most of my, I call it these days, like I call it my village.
Yeah.
I've developed my little village from, running, from triathlon, the gym. It's all movement-based people, right?
Yeah.
But I have this amazing community of people that we understand each other, we can connect. They could help me, I could help them, and that all started with movement.
Yeah.
So,
wow. So walk us through a little bit, because you mentioned, recess and FIAD being your favorite things as a kid. Like looking back, why do you think that was such an important outlet for you as a kid?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I kind of mentioned I was like the high energy kid, right? I was the one that like, I wanted to be out and doing things.
Yeah.
And I think right away too, is it was a way for me to find that community, you know, to like find friends and connect with people. You know, like if I look back, if I were just like quickly roll through like all the things that we did as kids, right? And I had to like off the cuff name 5, right? It was block chase, it was baseball, it was sliding bases, it was playing football, and the pool, right? So like, which one of those was sitting around doing nothing?
Right.
None of them, right?
Yeah.
They were all doing something. And I think that was important for me because it was like burning that energy, and it was having fun, and it was making friends.
Yeah.
So it kind of all started there. And then if we were to progress further, right? Like now we're looking at, you know, as you grow up, you know, I stayed in sports. Like when I was 10, I started running. So like running became my like, yep, this is what I love.
Yeah.
You know, and then I ran through college competitively, and then got into triathlon. And right then you're an adult, right? So now it's like that whole new world, right? Where there's no longer that structure. There's no longer you create this community because you go to class with everybody, or you create the community because, you know, you're on a team with them. You know, practice is no longer at 6 a.m. and 3 p.m.
And no one, a coach there to be like, hey,
you have to be there.
Yeah.
Right. So suddenly, like, you know, just like most people when they adjust from college or graduate from college, like now you have a real job and there's legitimate expenses to pay. And I'm like, oh, I have to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Like, but for me, I still had that piece, right? I jumped into triathlon, same thing, was able to build this village, was able to stay in a sport that kept me healthy. And I mean, since then, you know, it's continued to, you know, do just incredible things for me.
Yeah. Well, one thing I love about that and how you just continued it and it never was something that you lost, because thinking again from this inner child perspective is so many of us do. It's like after high school, we just stop. We stop doing the things that we loved because there aren't necessarily like softball teams or volleyball teams.
Well,
like, yes, you can search those things out in college, but how many of us are doing that? Like, that's an intimidating thing.
Yeah.
Unless your group of friends is doing it. And, you know, and then out of college, unless you're in a place like Madison where there's a ton of rec stuff, but even then, I love that stuff. And I've been on one volleyball league, you know, and I love it, but it's like, I'm not seeking that out because I got kids and I got this and I got that. I'm like, I don't have time for that. And that's always this thing is we stop playing.
Yes.
And we have completely disconnected from that fun and that community and that way that we just felt free. And we disconnected from our inner child because we stopped playing.
Yes.
And so finding these ways as an adult
to do that,
to bring that back, but also helping our kids see, like helping them stay connected to things that they love, not necessarily the things that you love and living vicariously through them.
No. That was one thing I was grateful for with my mom. You know, one of the most impactful things she ever said, and this is another one of those like clear as day. I could picture where we were, you know, at the kitchen table, my brother, who is 3 years younger than I am. So, you know, for the most part, like everything we did together kind of lined up.
Yeah.
But I remember going to her at the kitchen table and both of us, you know, kind of like that excitement of like, she's totally going to say no, you know, and whatever. I don't even remember what the activity was, but it was like some random, like off the wall, crazy thing we wanted to go do. And we just asked her and she goes, I don't care what you do as long as you always give 100%. So she was like, I will support you no matter what. As long as it's 100%. And I mean, now we're kind of like going off topic on the way of like, you know, physical education and all of that stuff. But, you know, that's important. Like, you know, she said, yeah, you could go do whatever makes you move, whatever, you know, that. And I wish, you know, like, I mean, I could picture like all the way down to like the horrible kitchen chairs we had.
but if you're talking plastic scooters in grade school, I'm out imagine the kitchen table chairs that you had.
Yes. You know, but I can't remember the activity, but clearly it was something that was approved, which meant that there was movement involved. But, you know, the point being that, you know, I joke, because we have all these varying different programs in Try for Schools, I always joke, I'm like, I don't really care what you're doing as long as you're moving, right? So like if you're doing a triathlon, cool. If you're playing basketball, cool. If you're in skipping club, also cool.
Skipping club.
I mean,
What?
I don't know if that's actually a club. I don't have
I
kids,
am there.
but I think it would be popular.
That's a great idea.
I think it would be popular. But the point being that it's movement.
Yeah.
You know, and so like even now as adults, like you said, it's going out and playing.
Yeah.
And like for some people, that's a gym. For other people, it's the intramural volleyball league. It's going for a walk. It's whatever that is. It just needs to not be seen as like, I have to work out.
Yeah. Well, I got all the feels as you were talking is because what she did in that moment was just give you permission to try new things and to not like have to live up to these certain expectations. Like just give 100%, but have fun and enjoy it. And in that moment and why you remember in such detail, like it's one of those core memories. Like she implanted like such an important message in you.
Yes.
To just, whatever you want to do, just do it. Give it your all. I don't care what that is.
Yep.
You know, but oftentimes what I see so often, and especially in adults as we're working through this inner child stuff, is there was a message early on that like, well, if you're going to do it, like you need to be perfect at it. Like 100% is different than being perfect at it, right? Like,
absolutely. Totally different.
Because an example of this is my daughter swimming. She's on the swim team in the summer, and her very first race this summer. And she hadn't swam the butterfly the entire season before. You know where this is going.
Yeah, I still can't swim the butterfly. It's not where I even try.
So it had been an entire year.
Yeah, of not swimming
and not even swimming the butterfly the season before. And for some reason, they had her swim the butterfly the very first race. That girl gave 100%, but she came in dead last. Like I didn't even know if she was going to finish. My mama heart was like, am I going to need to go out there and
give her? Yes.
But I saw her give
everything.
She literally gave everything she had to finish that. Everything. And I said, Aria, you won in regards to giving. You gave 100%, and that is all that matters. So that is, bless your mom's heart.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully though, that's a core moment for her. That you went after that race, you went to her and you said, you won.
Yeah.
Like you may have been the last one to hit that wall, but you won.
Yeah. You did not give up. You literally gave everything you had to finish that. And that is such an important message, because I think sometimes, again, it gets really locked in at a young age where kids feel like, I need to be the best at this in order to receive love or attention, or for my parents to notice me, to praise me. I need to be the best at this. And if I'm not the best at this, then I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
And that is what we have got to change, that message with parents and with kids to know 100% looks different for everyone.
Yes.
And movement looks different for everyone. And it's as long as you're enjoying it.
Yes.
But we have to take away this, like, I have to achieve in order to, because you see that as an adult, how that just plagues so many adults.
Yeah.
From trying new things.
Yep.
You know, for me to try a triathlon, I'm like, oh, hell no. Like, I would absolutely fail at that. We're like, well, why not?
But would you give it your all? Yeah. And you have now gotten to the point in your life where like you give 100% at everything. Like that's very, very clear.
I would come in dead last, but I would give it 100%.
I would argue that. I think you could. So that's actually, I mean, that kind of gets at that kind of perfectly ties in with kind of just like what I went through recently. So we said we had our crazy, connections and stuff. Well, I just recently got divorced. And obviously there's a lot that comes with it. Yeah. And before the divorce, I lost my mom to cancer. Yeah. So it was 2022. Yes. One of those, you never know how you're going to react until it happens. You never know what you're going to feel. Like, I think through, like, oh yeah, I have sympathy for that person that lost their parent. And then you go through it and it's like, oh gosh, like, and for me, like, right. That story tells you my mom was my everything.
Yeah.
But, despite all the hard times, and obviously I would do anything to get her back.
Yeah.
But I've learned, no crying.
I cry all the time. So they're fine.
Yeah, so do I. It's good. But, I learned so much from that. And there was this element of like, oh my goodness, like I was 30 when she died. She was 63. So it's like I had this moment of like, if I have 33 years,
Wow.
am I good with where I am? Like, am I good with what I've achieved, with the direction I'm going? Like, am I really me? Right? Am I really that kid on the scooter in gym class, living life at 11, not caring at all what's happening outside of that moment on the scooter and making sure I beat Joey across the floor? Like, you know, like, and my answer was no.
Yeah.
You know, I had started to do some of those like should do's, right? You know, like you should do, you know, you should settle down, go to college, get married, have kids, do all these, you know, all this standard thing. And it's like, well, is that really me? And it was that moment to like reflect and, you know, say like, wow, like, you know, my mom never got to experience retirement.
Yeah.
You know, if I have 33 years left, you know, what am I not going to experience because I'm choosing those should do's?
Yeah.
And that kind of became this like catalyst for, I have to reconnect with being Amanda, who was, you know, 4 foot nothing at 8-year-old, you know, like, because that's who we should be as adults. Right.
Yes.
And so that story that you said about your daughter giving 100%, I kind of had that. I 100% had that as like recently, you know, within a month. So I had a lot of success in triathlon, which is awesome. But eventually you get to that point, you have a lot of success. There's a lot of pressure that gets put on you.
Because now you've reached that level. Ooh,
right.
Not fall from that.
Where you put that pressure on yourself or other people put that pressure on you. And especially Madison is a huge triathlon community.
Yeah.
Very, very talented athletes. It is not abnormal to go to a race and have the top 5 out of 10 beat Madison people, you know, even across the state, across the nation. But so 2022, after my mom died, did the World Championships. Then I was like, I need a break. Like, I need a break. Like, I need to figure my stuff out. So from 2022 to September 15th, a month ago, I hadn't raced at all, which was like a 10 is when I started running. Probably did my first race at 11. So it was like 20 something years for the first time, like not racing. Just wild.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But yep. There was this though. I felt like there was this pressure that got like, I had put that pressure on me. And then I went through everything with my mom and getting married and getting divorced, changing jobs, like all the things that come with that. Like, right. Like every major life event you can think of.
Yeah. Literally.
Minus having a kid. Like I pretty much went through within the past, 4-ish years. Yeah, it was a lot. But, ultimately getting back to the, why we're here is like, it was fitness that got me through that all.
Yeah.
Right. So like when it got to the point that like things with the divorce got rough, it was starting to be very physically taxing. It was mentally taxing. It was emotionally taxing. It's all you think about, and that's a whole 8 hour.
We'll bring her back for another episode.
Conversation for another day. But ultimately, because I had stopped racing, you kind of I stopped training with the team.
Yeah.
So you lose that community.
Yeah.
Now granted, that's when I found the sauna community. So that was good. I don't know if I would have found the sauna community if it wasn't for stopping racing.
Poor thing.
Yeah, right. Whatever. We're doing scooter races. Now it's all worth it.
We have joked about having a sauna podcast though. One of these days.
I still think we need to do it.
Yeah.
Even if it's like the Zoom videos going to be all steam. It's just going to cloud up. We'll probably break another computer. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll bring my old one along for that. We can use that. But as the things got tough, it was like my first instinct was like, I need to start working out again.
Yeah.
Or like working out as in like, I need to go back to the team. I'm on Madison Multi-Sport Triathlon Club. So again, I built that community because those are the people I train with. we are adults. I am, in addition to being the director of Tri for Schools, I do a lot of travel for contracting gigs. So like, I don't have a lot of time, right, to like live the whole like, yeah, we'll just go out and get dinner. We'll go out and do this random thing. No, most of my social time is while I'm working out.
Yep.
But because I had stopped going to team practices, suddenly I was missing that community piece. I was missing the structure.
Yeah.
And so I, very, very grateful that I'm self-aware enough to be like, whoa, to say like, okay, we need to go to fitness instead of going to bad things, right? The things that are much, much easier,
much more accessible.
Much more accessible. In my family, we have a long history of addiction, right? And so like, I know I have that addictive, gene, trait, whatever you want to call it. A lot of, if you go through any of the research, a lot of it says that any sort of addiction is 50% genetic, 50% environment.
Mm-hmm.
So like looking back as I'm going through this divorce, right? Like, okay, genetic, check. Environment. Yep, check.
Yep, there it is.
And so I'm grateful that I had like that awareness to be like, yep, time to start working out again, because I'm not going to want to do something bad, right? Pick up a drink, go to a bar, and then wake up the next morning and go swim.
Right.
Or go lift or go run or go bike. But if I have this baseline of fitness and I'm starting to build that confidence again, well, I'm going to go to bed at 9 and I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go swim because I'm going to feel a lot better.
Right.
Both when I wake up and then when I'm done swimming. And that's really the, like, it was even more so than before, or like, before all of this happened with the past 4 years, like, and I've been involved with Tri for Schools for a long time prior to being employed. But even more after I had that realization was like a physical fitness is so much more than just fitness, right? Like it's so much more than physical health. And so now more than ever, I'm kind of seeing things through, I guess, like a magnified lens of like, it is so important we teach these kids what this can do for them. And I've kind of been like referring to as like, you're like hiding the vegetables, right? It's like, we're getting them to go out and have fun and play, but like they're learning that like, when I have a hard day at home, when I have a hard day at school,
this is an outlet.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can go and I'm going to move and I'm going to, use that as an outlet versus something bad, something that is accessible.
Right. And when they can see that and feel it, really more or less feel it.
Absolutely.
Because I know that too. But for years I would turn to the pantry instead of going outside for a walk or going on my paddleboard. And now I'm like, no, get outside, just get outside. And if everyone did that, like, and they're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling stressed and about to do X, Y, and Z, if they all said like, wait, we're just going to get outside first. Like, I feel like the world's problems could be solved if we all just got outside and just got some fresh air, got some sunshine, did some grounding, like, because it just naturally helps clear the heaviness. It just naturally helps you like regulate in a sense. And so for a kid to know, oh, this is a tool to get outside is actually a tool for me to feel better.
Right.
Because I think even as adults, and I think Zoe and I talked about this on episode 2 about being outside and how truly important that is people know they feel better when they get fresh air.
Yes.
You know, you like when it's rainy and you feel the energy like, oh, it's just so gloomy. And then the sun comes out and you're like, oh,
this
like,
is wonderful.
We know that.
Yes.
So now be intentional about that.
Right.
And that's where even just helping our kids just to understand, like, this is so much more than about you moving. Like, I understand we need to balance between screen time and movement, but this is so much more than even movement. This is energetically, this is emotionally supporting you.
Well, and then it's like, then you even dig, you dig deeper into that. And it's like, okay, if we have movement, we're outside and we're doing all of these things that are active, you have that feeling of like accomplishment of like, oh, wow, that was awesome. I just got that done. But then what that's actually developing is your work ethic.
Yeah.
It's your drive. It's your perseverance.
Yep.
So again, it's more of that like hiding the vegetables of like you're developing things that are going to take you so far into adulthood and really kind of build you into who you are.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned like, why was that important as a kid or why did I find myself doing that? It's like, now I look back, and I can go through every part of my life and be like, okay, how can I relate that to movement? Whether it was me playing team sports, like played baseball growing up. And then I got into running, which was both a team sport and an individual sport. I could go back to every single one of those time periods in those sports and say, how has that influenced me today?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'd be able to come up with like a negative influence of one of those moments or of being, on a team sport.
Yeah.
So it's so, so huge. And it just starts with like a little bit of movement and a little bit of outside.
Yep.
And that's so much easier to develop as a kid.
Right.
Than it is for us to get into our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and go like, might be a little unhealthy, like might need to go to the gym now, right. Whereas if we could just foundation, they love that. It carries on through adulthood.
Yeah. It makes me think of, I'll probably butcher his quote, Corby, who's also a sauna guy. Shout out to Corby. I don't remember episode number he was, but he's on here too. I'm just recruiting all my sauna friends.
Well,
everyone has a story, and that's where you hear people's stories.
You're right. I was going to say, we have a lot of really good conversations.
We do. But he had said, and again, I'll probably butcher it, but it was like, we never have losses. We just have lessons.
Yes.
And so when you look at, even if I were to think back to, something in my childhood, like a team sport or something like, maybe you got made fun of, maybe you didn't make the team. Now to look back, like as a kid, it might've felt like this loss, but as an adult, can you go back and find the actual lesson in that and what that taught you or what you could learn from that or what it was trying to show you?
Yes.
That you were always worthy, even if you didn't make the team. Right. I mean, there's so many ways that we can reflect back on any of those experiences because some kids and a lot of adults that I talked to did not have positive interactions in, my whole thing on every intro, I talk about my FIAD teacher.
Yeah.
Call me a hot dog for scoring a freaking goal.
The wrong influence.
Yeah. So, and how that has continued to play in my head all of these years. But I mean, there's so many awful stories that kids have from, or adults have from. I was actually just talking about the presidential fitness test with a buddy at the gym the other day.
Louise.
And that was my whole life. I told myself the story, like I could never do a pull-up. I could never do a pull-up. And like, it was such a limiting belief. And I was just convinced that I could never do a pull-up. And so now every time I do a pull-up, I'm like, I can feel my 6th and 7th grade self being like, yes, look at you, girl. You did it. I did not give up on you. But how many of us would still, even as an adult, like, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. Like, but again, when you tap back into your inner child's like, I can do anything. I just want to try. I just want to play. I just want to have fun.
Yes.
Your inner child doesn't give a shit. No, you like win the thing. They just want to go out there and play.
Yes.
It's the pressure that often parents put on the kid that ruins it for them.
Yes. 100%. Yep.
So if we can look at that, like, how can, if you are that parent, like, know that that's your own, it's your own childhood wound stuff to really look at that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel that even with Aria swimming, when she was coming in dead last, I'm like, oh boy, because I'm competitive. I'm life clean. And so I felt that for her. But again, I was able to be like, oh my God, like, I don't care that she came in dead last. She gave 100%. And I can express that to her rather than going up to her and be like, well, we need to start practicing the butterfly. That was pathetic. That was embarrassing. That was, hopefully people don't say those words, but you don't need to say the words. Your energy will say it.
Yeah.
You walk up to that kid and just the look in your energy, they will feel the disappointment from you. They don't need you to say a word.
No.
And so that's where we have to check ourselves. Is this lying? And I think I wrote a post about it, of course. I had to check myself before I went over to her because I'm watching this and I'm feeling that the athlete in me feeling like,
and you can feel those feels.
Oh yeah.
That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I mean, again, that's good, right? Developing that natural drive to compete.
Yes.
I mean, competing is good. It's just, I personally think losing is more important than winning.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Learn to lose.
Yep.
Because what you learn when you lose, if you approach it the right way, is what's going to make you win.
Yep.
Like just, so a lot of times and we're kind of diving all over the place, but you see the kids in sports that never lose.
Yep.
And whether that's because, they're in a sport where they just excel, to just an incredible kind of unnatural level, or they're part of a team that's just phenomenal. It's been built for whatever reason, it has been built up to be this, crazy, undefeatable force.
Yeah.
They don't know how to lose. They don't learn that when they're young. And then when they get to adulthood, and don't get the job, get fired from a job, you start a new activity and you don't do well.
Or you can't even start a new activity because there's
you're afraid to lose.
Right. If I don't know how to do this or do it perfect, I'm not going to try it out. I see that all the time with people. That fear of failure, you're right, is so great. And it very likely comes from the kid who always achieved.
Yes.
Things always came easy to them.
Yeah.
And that was probably a way that unconsciously with their parents, you received love and praise because it's easy to be like, yeah, great game tonight.
Oh, and of course you should.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, whether I won the race or lost it, there should be excitement there in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just huge that that's the way you treated it for her. And hopefully, again, that is a core memory that says I just need to work my butt off and it's going to come.
Yeah. And it really, I felt like, I'm hoping, helped shift the next race. Well, what was so cool is at the end, so they had their all city.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. That was the first. We had a booth there at Try for Schools. That was overwhelming.
It's crazy.
Oh, my goodness.
It's absolutely crazy.
Wild.
But in her, she was, I don't know what heat she was.
Sure.
But I think it was, I'm trying to remember if it was freestyle or breaststroke, but she won her heat.
Oh my goodness.
She, still whatever came in when you think about all the heats, but
still
for her, that was everything. And I had brought that back. Remember your first race? Remember you came in dead last and now you came in first in your heat because you didn't give up. So how we approach those situations can make or break whether they're going to come back
100%
and whether they're still going to enjoy it, whether they're going to dread it, So I had to check myself before I went and talked to her because I realized ooh, this is my stuff. I'm uncomfortable because this is triggering my inner child.
Yes.
This has nothing to do with her.
Yep.
And ooh,
you did it though.
Because parenting thing sooner or later. It is not easy, but it is interesting. You talk about the losses. We're going through that with my son right now. He's so into football.
Okay.
Obsessed. And I love it because he loves to practice. He'll throw the ball to himself. He's just obsessed. He wants to learn. He wants to practice.
Phenomenal.
He doesn't want to lose though.
Well, of course not. Yeah. Nobody ever wants to lose. No. I don't want to lose as an adult either.
Right.
But
right. So it's kind of starting when he's receptive to it because you can't give him the talk after he loses. Now he's
now it's anger.
Now he's feeling his feels. And okay, this is maybe not the time to be like, Arlo, it's just a game. And I don't care
but we could go on a whole different side tangent of the just a game.
Well, that's just it. Even the other day, he was playing some little game and he lost and he got really upset. And he it doesn't count because whatever the other team scored on him, right? The last couple minutes. And I'm like, you're right. It doesn't count because it's a freaking video game. It doesn't. But this is his experience. I had to take myself out of it because I realized this is stupid. This is just a game. This is just a whatever. But for him in this moment, it meant something to him. And when you're thinking about a kid playing a game or in a sport or something like that, it's their experience in that moment and it means a lot to them. Yes. And so how we approach it, take yourself out of it, put yourself in their little shoes, in their little world, how are they feeling about this? How can I help them emotionally regulate through this? How can I just sit in this with them? I don't need to give them the pep talk immediately. I learned that very quickly. I think Aria and I talked about that on her episode is how I would swoop in too quick with my pep talks and she wasn't ready.
Right.
I'd just be like, that sucked.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We can sit in it with them.
Yes.
And then in the appropriate time, have the conversation about, what can you learn from that loss?
Right. And you really have to find the way to spin it. Right.
Yeah.
You can find something positive out of losing.
Yeah. There's so many. You're right.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many advantages to losing.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Right. Wow, losers. I'm a loser, baby.
So I could write a manual on that. Especially with this podcast. How many times can you lose and fail creating a podcast, Tammy?
Well,
let me tell you the ways.
Count the number of microphones we've gone through.
Oh my goodness, for real. Which hopefully we have 2 functioning ones, if any of you noticed. That, has been a wave of emotions. But
yes,
I'm not going to give up. I'm not, and I had a whole episode on that when I was ready to just throw everything through the wall and be like, how many more times do I need to lose at this?
Right.
But
you got it. You won. You're here.
Right. Well, and that's just it. It's oftentimes right before you're ready to give up that you kind of have that like breakthrough type thing. And so, if you quit too soon, you miss out on that. And there's a great image. I wish I could, maybe I'll try to find it and share it with this post or this podcast. But it's some guy like digging, like, and there's 2 levels. Like one, he's digging and you can see like getting tired. Digging this tunnel and he gives up, but then you can see like if he would have went like one more hit, he would have gotten it.
Oh, okay.
If he wouldn't have given
he
up.
was looking for. Yes. Okay.
And so you think about how often do we give up like right before the breakthrough? Yeah. And we need to help our kids understand that too.
Right.
So I tell Arlo, like when you get upset like that, like you're done, you're out. You're not getting back in the game.
Yes.
So how do we kind of pick it back up and like, what can I learn from that and use that to apply into the next game or into the whatever it is, you know? Yeah. I'm going to go way back to something you said earlier. Okay. So here we are, like, jump in.
I was like, this is why I love that it's unscripted. Because I've been, I've been on like other podcasts, whether it's about triathlon or it's been about tri schools or whatever. And, there's always that like list of questions.
Oh God, no.
And then, right. But which is like, it's okay, right? Like, it's like, it's nice to have like a little bit of like a prompt, but then you hit this moment where it's like, wish I could have said this, like that other question. And so I like the whole, like, we're all over the place.
Well, because there was 2 things you said. And I was like, I wanted to take notes and make sure I didn't forget that. So I'm like, I'm coming back to this. When you were talking about your own experience and these are kind of what I refer to as tower moments, so many people had them in 2020 and 2021. And I think that honestly on a like spiritual level was kind of the point.
Yes.
It was kind of the point to let everything crumble that really wasn't serving us because a lot of people had to look at life very differently.
Yes.
Your social life, the things that we were doing outside of ourselves.
Careers.
Yeah. Is this really serving me? Is this lighting up? So I think that was like a global tower moment, and for a lot of people individually experience that themselves. And I certainly went through that as well, where it was just this moment of like, whoa, everything that you knew came crumbling down.
Yes.
And I spent a year just staring at the rubble.
Yes.
I can't know what to do here. Yeah. I see that everything has fallen, but I'm not quite ready to even look through it.
Pick it all back up. Or what am I making?
Right. Like I think I was just in shock of, oh shit, everything just crumbled. And, and then what do you do with that rubble? Because at that point, at some point when you recognize like, okay, everything just came falling down. If I'm going to rebuild, what do I want to put back in place?
Yep.
Because if I am in control of building these bricks, I have to choose what now. It can't be everything like it was. And if you do, guess what? It's going to crumble again. And this time it's probably going to come down even harder. And I have seen that with people. And I would say like, this was a tower moment for you. And if you ignore this one, I don't want to know what the next one's going to have to be for you.
Right.
Because is it going to have to be like a catastrophic health event?
Yeah.
Is it going to be losing your job when you have the signs have been there for years that you are not happy in this career and you keep ignoring it.
Yep.
And that happened with me at UW. I ignored it. And eventually the tower came. And now I can see like, oh my gosh, that was a gift.
Yes.
It was a gift.
Yes. 100% it is.
But the other part of that is, so what a beautiful example of how you were able to find the gift in a very painful package with losing your mom and going through a separation and new job and all of these things. Like for a lot of people that would feel like, wow, my life literally just crumbled around me, but I'm going to find the gift in this. And I'm actually going to look, how do I want the rest of my life to look?
Right.
To take that time.
Yes.
To give yourself the time to really evaluate, is this what I want out of my life? And what I find interesting is that even though you stopped competing, I think sometimes we do need to be alone.
Yes.
Because you didn't know who you were.
Right.
And if you would have been within that community, you would still have had to put on that mask to identify with those people in that group. And I think same thing for me. Like I went through a total isolation period where I couldn't let anyone's input of who they thought I was, who they thought I needed to be impact that, because I'm like, I needed to know.
I need to figure it out.
Yeah. And so it's interesting of how the universe like kind of strips you away from all of that.
Yeah.
And says, hold up, we'll get you back to these things. But right now, I need you to be alone. I need you to sit in this. And that's hard.
It is. And that's quite honestly, that's kind of what happened, right? Is like, so 2022, like I said, late 2021 is when I switched to Try for Schools. Really didn't kind of like quote unquote take over until January, February of 22. Mom died February of 22. Got married May 2022.
Oh my goodness.
And then went right into Kona. So for those that aren't triathletes, Kona is the World Championships. When I started doing triathlon in 2013, that was like this race. Like I need to get to the World Championships. It is the pinnacle of our sport. And going back to the whole like get back up, learn how to lose thing, it took me 5 Ironmans, 5 full Ironmans to get there, right? You never talk about one would kill me. I decided 5 practice Ironmans.
We are different.
Well, yeah, but I also can't do 45 pull-ups.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can't either. So thank you for
wow. No, but right. So it took me until 2019. 2019, finally got it, finally qualified, and then 2020. So like I didn't race until 2022. It rolled over. That qualification kept rolling over until 2022.
Oh my gosh.
So, although it's like, right, like we go back to it's just a race, it's just a game. Kona meant way more than that. It meant so much more than that, and that was really that like really kind of those 5 years of trying to qualify for Kona where I was doing an Ironman every year. Was that like defining moment of there are so many people in your corner that you have built this big community of just incredible people that it's no longer just about you. It's no longer about I'm getting to Kona. Yeah. It's, like when I started looking at, and I have conversations with my coach, like I noticed I'm saying, we're doing this. Like we're doing that. Like we're going to get to Kona. Like we're going to have this great race, it's like, because it's this community that built it. And so for me, I would always, during the marathon part of the Ironman, my grandma and grandpa used to have a condo in Hawaii. And so my grandma, God, probably has like 6 million photos of like the same exact sunrise. Yeah. Out the condo,
that's very much me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I love it. Sunrises are my thing. Yeah. So I have probably 1,000 of those 6,000, of course, 4x6 printed, on the old school paper. But so I started every Ironman, I would write the names of like those people that were like part of my village on the back of one of those photos. And during the marathon, when I got into my transition stuff, I would pick the photo up out of my bag and I would carry it like crumpled in my hand, kind of just as like this like constant reminder of like, this is why I'm here.
Ooh.
Feels. But, so it was that made Kona more than a race.
Yeah.
It was like, it was this constant, the learning how to lose, finally winning. And everything that came with that win was not just physical.
Yeah.
The people the relationships I built, the work ethic, again, just like that drive, like it just kept building. And so Kona was kind of that, like, in the mom, married, divorced, Kona was that like last moment of like release. Ooh. Of like all of the big things are done, where I was just kind of, from the point of getting the job to my mom dying to that moment of finishing the race. Even like I go back and I like look at like my finisher photos from that, and almost in the finisher photo, you could like see the release of like just everything, you know, and like there were no tears, there were no any of that, but it's like just like on my face, like the way like I took my hat off even, and like the way my arms dropped, it was like that was the moment. But that was also the moment where it was like, you're not invincible.
Yeah.
Like you have feelings.
Yeah.
You have stuff you need to deal with.
Yeah.
You have things you need to confront, and everything is not okay.
Ooh.
You know, but again, it was good to have that moment.
Yeah.
So I took that step back from racing. You know, I had the opportunity, right? Sat down with a therapist and finally really started confronting, you know, both all the things that happened in that past year and a half. But everything before that too.
Yeah.
You know, all the things I went through as a kid, you know, as an adult, as a young adult, I guess, and an adult, and finally kind of started reconstructing the who am I, where do I want to be?
Wow. Oh, I got like, oh, the goosebumps here. Again, I wish I had it all. There's so many good things. One thing that made me think back to last week's episode with Kevin from the CEO from Tolarian, we were talking about, you know, addiction. He was talking about like Brett Favre and his addictions, and that no amount of Super Bowl trophies can replace this something inside of you. And like what I heard you say was, I made that race about so much more than just this thing that I was achieving, like really looking at how it was so meaningful to me.
Yep.
But also when it was done, like you take away that Band-Aid. And I will tell people that with meal plans and exercise, like they are great. They are great Band-Aids, but you have to heal the wound. And it was like in that moment, you ripped off the Band-Aid and say, okay,
it was finally gone.
Now it's time for me to look at the wound.
Yep.
And holy crap, does that take so much courage to do?
Yeah.
When that is like, because in many ways it's a beautiful, healthy outlet, but it can be a Band-Aid to cover up the thing you need to heal. And I have learned that lesson so many freaking times with injuries.
Yes. An injury is a great example for it. Yes.
I will never forget a conversation. And actually this was kind of when I was standing in that rubble and not doing anything about it. And I got my first knee injury where I was like, oh shit, like it was bad. And I will never forget the conversation with my friend Zoe when she said, like, you would be terrified if you couldn't work out again, couldn't you? And at that moment, I realized my fear wasn't about that I would gain weight or get fat like it was in the past. Like, so I was like, ooh, there's some growth there, because it wasn't about that. It wasn't, because for so many years, that was literally the only reason I worked out.
Yep.
So it wasn't about that. I was like, okay, that's cool. And she's not wrong, because that was my outlet to clear my energy, to feel empowered to start my day. And it was the way I moved through my emotions. And it was like, if I don't have that, I don't know how to do that.
Yes.
I didn't know how to do that on my own.
Yes.
I didn't know how to find that within myself without exercise.
Yes.
And so again, it's like, that was my tower moment. I had to receive it in the form of an injury to say, you need to look at your stuff and actually find other outlets, actually sit in this and look at it and heal it and talk to someone, go to therapy, do whatever. You can't keep hiding it under these behaviors, even if they're disguised as healthy ones.
Right.
Because at that point, it was a healthy outlet. I wasn't using it as punishment anymore, but I was also using it to avoid other forms of pain.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've, triathlon has, there's a fantastic community in triathlon. Absolutely incredible. But like any sport, you know, there's ways to take it too far.
Yeah.
You know, and there is sometimes you find these people that get like addicted to it, right?
Yeah.
Like it becomes everything. Like, I mean, I could name a few couples that have been divorced because of triathlon. You know, that one of those two people got like way too into it. And so one of the things that I noticed right away was like, you can't have one identity, one piece of your identity. You know, like it can't be Amanda, I'm a triathlete.
Yeah.
And that's it. Because if triathlon is taken away,
who am I?
Right.
Yeah.
And so it takes time to step back and evaluate that and see like, okay, who am I and what am I? And what are these other things? What are other parts of me that are good and fun and make me better?
Wow. That's so powerful. again, that you would like reach that level of success, were able to step away knowing that I can't let this be my identity. And I have to be able to figure out what I actually want moving forward in my life, who I actually am. And then when I'm ready, I can bring back in the aspects of what I do still love. And it turns out I do still enjoy those. Right. But now I'm kind of coming into it with a different perspective and a different energy. And it can be just about doing it now instead of having to win and achieve. And
and that long, I don't know, however many minutes ago, I mentioned that I hadn't raced since last month.
Look at that full circle moment.
See if I bring it back.
Always bring it back.
It just takes a little while. No, but so, you know, as I kind of got back into training, there's like in the back of my head was this like, maybe I could get, you know, fit enough to race. Maybe I'll want to race. And as I regained fitness, you know, like in talking with my coach, I told him, I'm like, I don't necessarily want to race, but if I am in a headspace where I feel like I will never say I can't during that race, I'm going to race regardless of what my fitness is.
Yeah.
Right. So like if I was 2019 Amanda and like, you know, absolute best triathlon shape I've ever been in, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, whether I was just at the beginning, you know, still riding a little hybrid bike, like also fine. Because I had this moment of like that race and being able to like achieve that I can't, was my big FU to the past 4 years, right? It was like the big, like all these things tried breaking me down.
Yeah.
And now, you know,
so many feels.
You know, like I had that moment, of like, yep, this is who I am. And now I'm going to build my life back up. And that was just like, for me, right? Because movement has always been my outlet. Competition has been my outlet, whether I'm competing with me or I'm competing against others. That I felt like that race had to be my moment.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like that capstone. But even still, again, you know, in Madison, big community of triathletes, like there's a name. And so there still was that pressure.
Yeah.
I didn't tell anybody. My coach knew I was racing and a couple best friends knew I was racing. Because there was still that little bit of like insecurity and that little bit of pressure.
Ego still talking.
Yep. That said, well, if you tell people, you have to go out and perform.
Yeah.
Like you have to finish at the top because that's who you were. And I didn't sign up for the race until I knew that that was like, doesn't matter. Until I knew that I could go into that and whether I finished in, you know, whether I finished at the top of the race or if I finished dead last, didn't matter. As long as I never said I can't.
Ooh.
You know, as long as I pressed and said, I can do this, then that was the win. And so signed up for the race, fastest half Ironman I've done ever. So, right. But it was all still that like defining moment. And I had in the weeks before the event, you know, like it eventually, you know, cause I was on the team and we always like, do like a list of people doing the events that we got in the event. And I got right away. I got a text message that said, I'm so excited you're back. And when I got that text, I feel like a kind of crumbled for a hot second.
Well, it'll be like this gut punch.
Yes.
But this is how I freaking love the universe works. Like you've done all this work and we're going to test you with this one text message.
One stupid
Are you going to stick with what you have come in here with, what you have worked so hard to do is to claim this race as my own with no expectations, with no pressure. And I'm like, oh, we're going to test you. And you really had to stand in that.
Yeah, 100%. It definitely shook me. And actually at Yola's, my coach and I kind of talked about it yesterday of when it kind of started to get out that way of like getting those couple messages about, oh man, it's back to racing or that's so exciting. You're back. And I'm like, just wanted to respond and be like, I'm not back.
I'm not the same person I was.
That. And then, and that was, That was like the true moment. Like it took me, looking at that text message and saying like, well, I'm not back, but I feel like I'm better. Ooh, like this is not why I'm doing this. I'm not Amanda, go out and win the race right now.
Yeah.
I'm Amanda, do better than what you've done before.
Ooh.
Because
but from a totally different level, not even like from a physical standpoint, like I'm going to come better, like emotionally and spiritually 100%. And like who I truly am. I'm coming in better as who I am.
Yes.
Like old Amanda is not back.
Right.
This is Amanda 2.0.
That's right.
Who honors herself, who knows who she is. Right.
Oh my God. Well, yeah. And those like, right. The results show it, right? So it's always good. Like, right. You get that.
Yes.
You have that like in your head, like, yep, this is what I want to do. This is how it's going to work out. And it's always nice to have that like validation. Right. And so like, I go back and if I look at that race and we compare times and, the data and all of that, we knew I wasn't as fit as I've always been because I spent the summer doing different things. I went on shorter bike rides because I went and I worked a lot of events. I spent more time in the gym than I have ever before.
Yeah.
So like we knew my bike was going to be slower. And it was like 20-ish minutes slower, which is a long time for a race of this duration at the level that we race at. But I still had that like, and there was something about the run that like I needed the run to be, because right, for like most triathletes, you get through the swim, you get through the bike, and then you typically crumble on the run. Like whether you blew yourself up on the bike, whether like running in general, honestly, but whether you blew yourself up on the bike or it's just, you're at the end of a long day, it tends to be that run where things kind of cave.
Yeah.
And this was the very first run, even in races I've won, where I never had that moment of like, okay, I could just slow down now. Like I could ease off or it's fine if I ease off or, I'll still get this time or I'll still, I should have enough, gap, like it'll be fine. It was the first run where it was like, no. Every time that thought popped up in my head, every time I looked down at the watch and saw the pace, it was always like press, like keep going all the way through the finish line. And the results validated what, like that proved. And so that was like, it really was for me. And that's why, again, like people have asked like, oh, well, are you going to go do this race? Like, did you take your slot to the World Championships? Did you do all that? I'm like, no, because it wasn't what it was about.
Oh my gosh.
It was so much more. And it was by far, definitely top 3 most important races I've ever done.
Girl, I was not expecting to get this fired up during this episode. Because what I love so much about that, and I said the same thing to Kevin last week when he was like, I was going to be a cop, but then I heard these people's stories and something in me said, I want to help people. And I was like, look what happened when you followed your intuition instead of doing the should. And now all of these gifts and all of these blessings that have come since then and how you have been able to help people because you followed your intuition. He's like, oh, I never thought of like that. Same thing here. It's like you took all the expectations off of this. You told your inner child, same message that your mom said is like, I don't care what the outcome is.
Yeah.
And for your inner child to know, we just get to show up. We just get to do what we love again. Yeah. And to do it from a place where you're so connected with you and who you are.
The actual you.
Yes. Like that's your inner child was with you running that race. And that's why you set your ego aside when that text came through, stuck with your inner child and said, we're doing this together. I am not giving 100%. Up on you. We are doing this together. And so your inner child was totally okay with you saying, push, go. Shadow was probably the one telling you.
Oh yeah. 100%.
It wasn't your ego. Like that's the difference. Like, I'm listening to you. I'm like, your ego wasn't telling you that.
Nope.
Your ego wasn't look,
no way.
Slow, like keep going. Like it was you and your inner child working together. Being like, let's go. We got this. Like, that is so powerful. And it's huge. Oh, if everyone could hear this message. And when you reconnect with your inner child and when you do this work and you set your ego aside,
all the great things.
You far exceed your expectations
things.
because you have reconnected and you're doing this work with your inner child.
Yes.
Holy shit. That is such a cool example of how
yes,
that can happen.
yes, it was. Yeah.
So yes, were the last few years hard as hell?
Oh yeah. 100%. Would I trade them for anything?
No. Right.
Nope.
And that's where I wish more people could take that time, even if it does feel like your world has crumbled.
Yeah.
Take that time.
And it has. Your world has crumbled.
It has to.
It has. And that's, again, though, that's okay. Like, does it suck? Are there things that you wish would never crumble?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, are there parts of you, like, right? My mom is such a big part of me. I would never wish for that to go away.
Right.
But in that happening, I got to rebuild.
Right. And I look at it too. Again, I have this whole, like, I make sense of things through like soul contracts, and in her passing at that time, the gift that she gave you, huge.
Yep.
And now, like, you can have this whole other sense of love and appreciation for your mother. And like, wow, what a gift that you gave me in the loss of your life, to still be able to connect with you, to have found that perspective, to complete, like, she did that for me. So I could look at my life.
And that go back to that 33 years thing. You know, I get that, you know, if I were saying I'm halfway, and obviously let's hope I'm not halfway. Let's hope I got more than that. But, if we say I'm halfway, like, now I get that reset button. Would I have gotten that any other way?
Right.
And I mean, my answer is no, because I have never experienced a larger loss than that, and a larger life-changing moment than that. So.
Well, and I have talked about this, I don't know what episode it was, about sometimes we miss the gift.
Yes.
I actually think it was Corby's episode, is sometimes we miss the gift. It's a very painful package, but we don't want to go there. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to open it up. And so we numb, we suppress, we do all these things when it's like, no, there was a gift in that loss for you.
Yes.
As
well, that goes back to Aria.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point of, you know, the whole point of this whole entire conversation is that she's out there working hard.
Yeah.
Yes, she lost, but there was this massive gift.
Yeah.
That said that if I just keep pressing, if I keep trying, if I keep showing up, I'm gonna win.
Yeah. Wow. You being in charge, whatever you want to call it, of this, I'm like, there is no one better. And I think you're just completely proved to everyone of like why we need people like you in these roles, because this isn't just a job for you. Like,
oh, it's passion. It's all passion. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm grateful every single day that, like, I can call this my job, but like, ultimately, you know, for me now at this point, it's my passion. It's like my duty to like take those experiences and see if we can get them to other kids.
Right.
I mean, and that's, you know, kind of going full circle for Try for Schools. That's what it's about. And, you know, we were talking about the budget side of things with how little money is in the school systems, you know, and it's also how there are lots of areas here that are low income.
Right.
And gosh, now I'm going like way off topic, but one story that kind of always pops into my head, because I'm so grateful for what my mom was able to give my brother and I, and give us those opportunities to play team sports, to go do cross country, track, get myself to a point in life where I could do triathlon as an adult. When I first started at Try for Schools, I said, you know, we have lots of programs. There were a lot of programs that I didn't know about, even though I had been involved in the organization. But one of which is we do these summer programs. So like we kind of like become a part of these kids' day camps, you know, so we're just like an add-in, which is super cool. And typically they're like neighborhood centers. So it's kids that are receiving care while their parents at work over the summer. And there's one particular group we go to. And so Try for Schools has a no questions asked financial aid policy. So if a kid wants to participate, we'll figure out how to make sure they participate.
That's amazing.
Because we want kids to, right? As we're having this entire conversation of how impactful movement just was for my entire life, your entire life. We need to get that into the kids' hands. And so this particular group They always need shoes. They're running around in flip-flops, bare feet, Crocs, whatever it is, not good. And so we show up like car full of shoes, like it looks like Christmas because, you have like paper in the boxes and, those little cardboard things. Yes. Yeah. All over the place. But all the kids have their shoes on, they're fitted, they've gone off to play. I'm just like wandering around, like collecting all the shoe boxes, right? Like me, I'm just going to take it home, recycle it. And I grabbed this last shoe box and this kid grabs my arm and I was like, kind of like taken aback, like it shocked me. Like, what? And he goes, "You can't take that." And again, still shocked, just kind of stare blankly at him. And he goes, "If I don't bring that home, they won't believe they're new and they won't believe they're mine." Oh. And my heart just shattered. Like, it's like, and I had that moment of like, this is this child's first pair of shoes that are just his. They're just his. They're not hand-me-down from brother or sister. They're not from Goodwill. They fit him. They're new. We had to take the tags off. And if he doesn't bring that shoebox home, then he can't prove that. And that's so like I remember, I could clear as day remember the drive home, getting into the car and just, melting. Going like, yep, this is fantastic that I get to do like what we just gave him, but also like, why is this a thing? But I still like that story is one of those, like, this is why I do this. Because if I look back to like little 9-year-old Amanda that started running when I was given my first pair of running shoes and where 33-year-old Amanda is now, like I look at Isaiah and go, where is he going to be in 30 years? That pair of running shoes can change everything.
Life.
Yeah. So again, we keep going back to Aria's moment. Like that moment can change everything. And it all just started with those kids going out and playing.
Wow.
It's like it all full circle, all so much more impactful than just pushing around on scooters in gym class.
Right.
But so important.
So important. And what you did in that moment for those kids and for that kid in particular to just feel seen and like to understand and like truly feel like what this kid's reality was.
Yeah. But it takes those moments, right?
Oh,
that's one of those things like you don't know that exists 20 minutes down the road until you see it.
Yeah.
That was Madison. So that, that really became the driver now for Try for Schools is, the accessible opportunities for kids to be active.
Yeah.
So how can we get the kids moving?
Well,
no matter what it takes.
I feel like we could have a whole other podcast about creating a safe space for kids and for some kids for this after school thing.
Huge
is you don't know what kids are going home to.
Nope.
And sometimes that after school program or that summer program is everything to them. To be able to get a meal, to be able to have like positive environment, someone encouraging them. Like you don't know what kids are going home to. And if we can help support places, companies, nonprofits like Try for Schools to create more opportunities for kids to feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally safe and to express themselves in those ways. Like that is everything. That is life-changing. It is programs like this that some kid could look back and be like, that program literally changed my life.
Yes.
I am a 40-year-old adult.
Right.
And I remember being in Try for Schools and that changed my life.
That's the hope. That's the hope. And that's the, right. Like, I believe we are doing that, like I really do. I mean, it's, again, I could look at it from my life. I could look at it from so many others. And it's just, that's everything. It all starts there. And it all starts with developing that love for movement and that love for play. And then you continue that as an adult.
And to continue that, continue that, and
everybody
create that.
Go find an activity.
Find an activity you love.
Yes. And do it.
And don't care if you suck at it at first.
Well, 100%. That's huge too. Yeah. Have the confidence to go out and totally swing in this.
That's funny because I'm going to a class tonight that I have never done before. And I'm going in with that same attitude of like, whatever, I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to have fun.
Good.
I don't care if I suck at it.
I'm right with you. Same thing. Shortly after this, I'm going to go try something new. That's
super. Okay. So how can people help? Because
thank you.
mean, most podcasts, like we're just sharing stories, but I feel like this is huge and a major opportunity for people to help. And if this episode did not pull your heartstrings, I don't... You might be dead inside because, and especially with the holidays coming and you think about kids that,
that don't have that.
Don't have that. Like, how can people help? How can we donate? How can we support? All of the things.
Absolutely. So our website, tryforschools.org. But there's all sorts of ways to get involved. And I mean, it takes everything for us. I mean, for our events and our after school programs, it's like 90 volunteers. So tons of volunteer opportunities. Donations are absolutely huge. We need that specifically. I am now, after that story that I just told with the shoes, I will never give a pair of used shoes to a kid in our program ever. Because I saw how impactful that was, right? It's like, we can go get a, $10 Goodwill pair that looks kind of new, but we're paying for the tags in the shoebox because that almost matters more than what's inside.
I mean, that's a worthiness thing right there to tell a kid, you are worthy of new shoes. You are absolutely. And I'm the youngest of 4 girls. I know what hand-me-downs feel like.
Right.
I mean, I get it. And I know that feeling of, and that's why it's hard for me to buy I joke about my gym shoes now. And someone actually had to give me a freaking pair that was,
oh my gosh,
brand new to them, but like they hadn't used them. And like, why
Right.
can't I buy myself new shoes? And it was this whole childhood thing. But so to tell a kid just through a simple act of that, like, you are worthy of these shoes. These are yours. Oh, that's big.
And so this year we gave out just over $3,000 in shoes.
Wow.
So is a lot. It's a big number. And so what we're going to start doing this year is we'll have on, right? Because with nonprofits, like obviously like we have all sorts of different expenses. And a lot of times it's really nice to know specifically where your money is going. And we acknowledge that. And, any way people can help is phenomenal. So we'll have like an Amazon wish list type thing. So there'll be shoes on there first. So if people want to literally go and purchase a pair of shoes, and we encourage you to write a message in the little gift box, and that will get tucked in with the pair of shoes that the kids get, likely in the spring and the summer. So huge opportunity in that way.
Oh my gosh.
And
I will show the shit out of that.
And then our last, of course, shameless pitch is we're the new leadership of the Birdie Derby. So big 5K, 10K in Fitchburg on Thanksgiving, now rebranded to the Birdie Derby. But that's our biggest fundraiser of the year. And the goal with that race, all the money that we raise is going to support all the financial aid we provide to kids. So this year we provided just over $34,000 in financial aid.
Wow.
So it's a big number. And what's crazy is it's grown year over year since we've been there. So it's like, I think when I first started, it was 20. Then we went up to 26 and now we're at 34. So it's like, it's great to see that we're reaching those kids, right? We are providing those accessible opportunities, but eventually it's going to become really hard to afford. And so coming out and participating in the event, volunteering for the event, that's really going to be the big thing for us and the big fundraiser. So,
well, and I love that you shared that because I did not know that. I mean, I think like you sign up for a race, like you don't know where your money goes, but
it depends on the race. Totally depends on the race. So like, there are multiple turkey trots in town here, and we're the only one where 100% of the proceeds go back to the community. So that's where all those proceeds are going, straight to financial aid, straight to get kids like Isaiah shoes on his feet so he could love movement.
Oh, I don't even like to run, but I will sign up.
There's a walk. You can walk a 5K. You can walk a 5K.
I can.
You can run a 5K.
I love that. needs to be shouted from the rooftops that's why, right? And it's all it goes back to your Kona race. Like 100%. This means something to me. And your previous race, like this really means something. So for people to get out there like, oh, it's not just a fun little Thanksgiving run. Like when you know where that money is going for, and your registration is literally putting shoes on a kid's feet, like
it feels pretty good.
It feels pretty
both
good.
The run, both the movement, and then what you did with the money.
Yes.
So
win,
that's the
win.
hope. So we hope that people come out and join us on Thanksgiving. It'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Wow. You guys, you over delivered. I mean, I knew it was gonna be a great episode just because I have fun talking to her, but like I want to watch back. Like, how many times did Tammy look like she was like goosebumps and feels? And thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on. This has been awesome.
Yeah. Wow. You will have to come back, and we have lots of things we can talk about, but this was amazing today. Thank you for sharing so much of your personal story, because it really does. Everyone has a story. And when you see how that leads into your purpose, I'm hoping that this podcast allows people, you know what, maybe going in and doing this work isn't so scary, because there's a beautiful purpose and gift at the end of this. And you were able to find that for you. And now you're helping so many kids and so many families. Oh, bless your heart and your mom's, because wow, what a foundation she laid for you.
Absolutely. She did.
Oh, on that note, thank you, Amanda.
Yes, thank you.
I will put all the links in here for Try for Schools, for the Birdie Derby, all the things. Please donate, share their stuff, all the things that you can, because this is how we can support, even if you're not a runner, even if you're not in schools or don't have kids, like you can still support.
Every kid needs it still.
Every kid needs it still. And that's just going to create healthy adults.
That's right.
And we're all going to have to deal with them someday. So say hello for little people now. Yes. And so I will provide all of those links, and hopefully we can help get you some support. So
thank you.
Awesome. Well, until next week, please go out and do something, some form of movement that you and your inner child would absolutely love. Just have fun doing. Allow yourself to just have fun and be free and not care.
Yes, exactly. Every day.
Every day. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We will see you next week.